There is a particular kind of person that most people never learn to recognize until it is too late. They smile warmly. They speak softly. They never raise their voice. They say all the right things at the right moments. They are, by every visible measure, polite. And yet, somehow, after spending time with them, you walk away feeling confused, diminished, or quietly hurt, without being able to explain exactly why. You cannot point to anything they said that was overtly cruel. You cannot describe a specific incident that would sound bad if you told someone else. But something happened. Something always happens with people like this. And in many parts of Asian culture, this dynamic is not the exception. It is in many ways the rule. Today I want to talk about something that took me a long time to understand, and even longer to be comfortable saying out loud. Politeness is not the same as kindness. Harmony is not the same as honesty. And the cultures that place the highest value on surface-level social grace are sometimes the very cultures where certain kinds of emotional harm can hide most effectively. I am not saying Asian cultures are bad. I am saying that any cultural value, taken to an extreme or used without self-awareness, can become a tool for something much less noble than its original intention. Let me start by explaining what I mean by polite culture, because not everyone watching this grew up in one. In many East and Southeast Asian societies, including Japan, South Korea, China, and the Philippines to varying degrees, maintaining social harmony is treated as one of the highest social priorities. This means that direct confrontation is generally avoided. Disagreement is softened or expressed indirectly. Negative feelings are rarely voiced openly, especially in public or professional settings. Saying no outright can feel rude, so people find ways around it. Saying something critical is often considered more damaging to the relationship than staying silent, even when the silence allows a problem to grow. On the surface, this sounds like a society of very considerate people. And in many ways, it produces genuine consideration. People think carefully before speaking. They are mindful of how their words land. They try not to cause unnecessary discomfort to others in shared spaces. These are real and valuable qualities. Anyone who has traveled to Japan, for example, will likely have experienced the extraordinary level of courtesy in daily interactions. Train stations, restaurants, shops, and public spaces all operate with a level of collective consideration for others that can feel genuinely remarkable if you're not used to it. But here is the other side that the tourist brochures do not include. When an entire culture is built around not saying what you actually mean, when the appearance of harmony is valued more than the reality of it, you create a social environment where a certain kind of person can operate with almost no accountability. Because the rules of the culture protect them. They never have to say anything directly cruel. They never have to openly criticize or attack. They can express hostility, contempt, disapproval, and even cruelty entirely through what is left unsaid, through tone, timing, omission, and the specific way they perform politeness at you rather than with you. This is called passive aggression at its most sophisticated level. And in high-context cultures, which is the academic term for cultures where meaning is conveyed through context, relationship, and implication rather than through direct words, passive aggression becomes almost invisible to anyone who is not raised to read those specific signals. Let me give you some examples, because this concept is easier to understand through situations than through definitions. Imagine a coworker who always greets you pleasantly, always asks how you are, always volunteers to help with group tasks. But whenever you present an idea in a meeting, they stay very quiet. Not rudely quiet, just quiet in a very deliberate way, while making small expressions that only certain people in the room will notice. They never say your idea is bad. They never argue against it. They simply perform careful neutrality in a way that signals to everyone around them that they do not support you, without ever having to say so. If you confronted them, they could honestly say they never said anything negative about you or your idea. And technically they would be right. Or imagine a family member who is always present, always helpful with practical things, always ready to assist in a visible and socially recognized way, but who, over years, makes small consistent comments that chip away at your confidence. Comments disguised as concern. Observations framed as helpful advice. Comparisons presented as gentle encouragement. None of it is ever openly cruel. All of it is delivered with a kind tone and a caring expression. And the cumulative effect of it, absorbed quietly over years, shapes the way you see yourself in ways that direct criticism never could, because direct criticism you can identify and push back against. This kind, gentle, concerned version you cannot argue with without sounding ungrateful and oversensitive. This is why polite people can be the most dangerous. Not because politeness itself is harmful, But because the mask of politeness, when worn deliberately and skillfully, is one of the most effective ways to cause harm while maintaining complete social protection. In Japan, there is a well-known concept that captures part of this: the distinction between tateimai and han. Tateimai refers to the public face, the socially acceptable version of what you present to others. Hanani refers to your true feelings and desires. In Japanese social culture, managing the gap between these two things is considered a normal and necessary social skill. You do not always say what you truly think or feel because maintaining group harmony matters more than individual expression in many contexts. This is not considered deceptive in the same way it might be in a more individualistic culture. It is considered mature and socially responsible. But the same mechanism that makes tateimai a tool for social courtesy also makes it a tool for social concealment. A person can use the cultural expectation of tateimai to hide genuine hostility, resentment, or manipulation behind a perfectly maintained public face. And because the culture itself validates the separation between public presentation and private feeling, there is very little framework available for calling this out. To point at someone's tateimai and say, "That is not how you actually feel," is itself considered a social violation. South Korea has a similar dynamic, shaped partly by Confucian values that emphasize hierarchy, collective harmony, and respect for social roles. Younger people are expected to defer to older people. Employees are expected to defer to employers. Disagreement from a person of lower social status directed at a person of higher status is considered deeply inappropriate in many traditional settings. This creates a structure where those at the top of any hierarchy can behave in ways that harm those below them, and the cultural rules make it very difficult for those affected to say anything directly. The Korean concept of nunchi, which roughly translates to the ability to read a room and understand unspoken social dynamics, is considered an important social skill. People with strong nunchi know what others want or feel without being told directly. This is a beautiful quality when it is used to create genuine consideration and care. It becomes something more complicated when it is the primary way that all communication in a relationship happens, because it means one person is constantly working to decode what the other person actually means, while the other person maintains complete deniability about their true intentions. In the Philippines, the cultural value of pakikasama, which means going along with the group to maintain harmony, creates a similar dynamic. Filipinos are generally warm, welcoming, and genuinely hospitable people. But the strong cultural preference for not making others feel uncomfortable or embarrassed, what is sometimes called the culture of saving face or hiya, can also make it very difficult to address problems directly. A coworker who is causing problems in a team may never be told so directly. A family member whose behavior is damaging may be worked around rather than confronted. The problem is acknowledged privately among trusted people but never addressed with the person causing it, because direct confrontation carries too high a social cost. The people who learn to exploit these cultural values are not always consciously calculating. Some of them have simply learned, over a lifetime, that the rules of their culture protect them from consequences as long as they maintain the appearance of appropriate behavior. They have never had to develop honesty or accountability because the social environment never required it of them. The culture did the work of shielding them. And then there are those who are more deliberate. People who understand exactly how to use politeness as a weapon. Who know that a compliment delivered with the wrong timing can wound more effectively than an insult. Who know that being visibly kind to everyone except you, in a culture where that contrast is noted by others, is a form of social exclusion that leaves no fingerprints. Who know that the most cutting thing they can do is simply continue to be perfectly pleasant while everyone around you can see that their pleasantness toward you is slightly different, slightly more careful, slightly more performed than it is with others. Learning to recognize this pattern is not about becoming cynical or suspicious of everyone who is nice to you. Most people who are polite are simply polite. Most people who maintain social harmony are doing so genuinely and generously. The ability to recognize the difference between genuine warmth and performed warmth is a skill, and it takes time and experience to develop. It also takes honesty with yourself, because sometimes we resist seeing the truth about someone whose mask is still convincing us that maybe we are imagining things. The most important thing I have learned about navigating polite but potentially harmful people is this: stop listening only to what they say. Start paying attention to how you feel consistently after interacting with them. The truth about a person shows up not in any single interaction but in the accumulated effect of spending time with them over weeks and months. If you consistently feel smaller, more confused, less confident, or quietly sad after spending time with someone who has never said anything you can specifically point to as wrong, that pattern is information. Trust it. Politeness is a beautiful quality in a person, but it is not a character reference. And in cultures where it is the primary social currency, learning to look past it is not rudeness. It is simply wisdom. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, subscribe to help me hit my 2,000 video goal. This is my unfiltered diary of solo living in the Philippines, from the tough days in the ESL classroom to my journey learning Japanese and Korean. Yes, I am still a beginner. If you would like to support my work and my retirement fund, check out the Buy a Treat for My Pets link in the description. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next update. Thanks for being part of the journey.
See you then.